So what did you guys think about the role play scenarios?
I think it went really good.
Yeah, you know, typically role-playing, in my experience, even in small group trainings and things like that, can be somewhat like pulling teeth, but it felt pretty natural in this setting.
I agree. I think we did a good job on emphasizing each communication technique, and I think our fellow classmates will feel the same once they see it.
I feel like it was a lot easier because we made the scripts beforehand and we could tweak them the way that we wanted to, and it wasn't necessarily improvised, but maybe a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, I think it was helpful that we could watch and provide feedback too, and improve it kind of as we went along.
I think that's great. So why do you guys think that we chose the common ground and the nonviolence communication methods?
I bought them.
Well, I think Rochelle was the one who came up with the topic idea, like the problem, and I think that was a really good problem because it's something that we'll eventually be an intern in, you know, and we'll be able to use those techniques maybe.
Yeah,
if we're having problems.
I definitely agree. I mean, I have one of probably the best bosses I've ever had, but still, given all of the, you know, outside pressures and things, there's still constraints on their time. So as much as they want to have, you know, our regularly staffed or regularly scheduled staff meetings and things like that, we're not always able to, and sometimes it can get a little frustrating trying to look for direction when somebody's not available. So you kind of feel like you're out there on an island, and I think it's a really common problem in this line of work.
Right. I liked how we were able to see different perspectives, like the intern's perspective as well as the supervisor perspective. Like the supervisors felt very busy and the intern felt neglected, but once the supervisor expressed her concerns, the intern understood why she wasn't able to meet him when he wanted to be met, basically.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. And then the identified problem in the situation. So like we talked about, the intern felt neglected, and then the supervisor was kind of like concerned with her other priorities that came first in her job, like the emergencies and things like that. Any other problems that you guys noticed throughout the scenarios?
You know, I think it's, I just, again, going back to, I think it's a really common problem. Sometimes we get tunnel vision on our own cases, and they become the center of the universe, but we forget that, you know, there are other priorities to other people. So it's, you know, it's a problem that I've ran into several. So I didn't really identify any other problems, but I think it was a good problem that we tackled.
Right. I mean, perhaps another problem, like, was maybe the confidence in yourself as an intern.
That is a good one, yeah.
Like, I noticed, like, in the common ground, you know, after Mariella had said, you know, like I think that we don't have to meet on a weekly basis type of deal. It was like, oh, you know, like, I really think that, you know, like, that helped me see myself a little bit more positively.
Right, and I don't think necessarily as the intern he thought that was the reason. So
Right.
It was kind of nice that they were able to share their perspectives.
Right.
Yeah.
So Seth, you mentioned something earlier about why we chose the common ground technique. So you said something about the resolution.
Yeah, you know, I mean, just in our development of our script, I think that the purpose of common ground is not always necessarily to come to a resolution. Kind of, you know, in the material we've read, common ground, the real purpose of it is just to create openness and get people engaged in a dialogue and be open to other perspectives. But in this instance, we were actually able to use it to move towards a resolution and you know, kind of towards a productive outcome. which I thought was interesting.
I agree. And with the nonviolence communication, it's also something that we can use not only in our professional lives, but also our personal lives with family or relationships or peers of any kind. So I think it's really neat that we chose that one because it's something we face every day to de-escalate problems or anything like that. Anybody want to add anything about that technique?
Yeah. So did anybody else, and this is kind of a candid comment, but did anybody else walk around after reading or watching Rosenberg's material and start telling people that they were jackals? or that they needed to be more like giraffes? Because I did, and my wife looked at me like I was nuts.
Yeah. I used the giraffe ears, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is... My husband did the same thing. He's just like, giraffe ears? He's like, what are you saying to me?
Oh my God.
But
It sticks in your mind, though. It was a good comparison.
definitely. I think one of the big points with the nonviolent communication also was just being more mindful, not only with like how you're feeling, but how the other person's feeling too. And whenever we were doing the role-playing scenario, it was, you know, like Seth, you kind of brought like this like agitated state, and you didn't really like. There was a point at which you're like, oh, you know, like I am feeling agitated. Like this is really how I am feeling. So as soon as you were able to be more mindful of it, you could work towards kind of more of a conflict resolution.
Yeah, you know, I think that one thing that nonviolent communication and a lot of the subjects or the intervention kind of techniques that we have used but have, you know, read about or what have you and throughout the course of this class, they all come back to emotional intelligence. And I mean that is a common theme throughout them, and I think that that's a really valuable tool for any social worker, clinician, whoever might be, you know, in this realm of work. That we have to have a level of emotional intelligence.
I think the other good aspect about emotional intelligence is you can improve on it and you can learn more as you implement it. So that's valuable as well.
Yeah.
I think in regard to the common ground strategy, I think it was a valuable lesson to learn in using that strategy, simply because I think we're oftentimes preparing what we're going to say next instead of actually listening.
Right.
So,
yeah, you know, that was a key point that I really kind of related to myself, is that I really find myself a lot of times when I'm listening to people, I tune out the second half of what they're saying because, like you said, I'm already preparing a rebuttal or how I'm going to respond to that instead of just being present and kind of, you know, observing without judgment. So I think that's a key concept to take away from it as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I like how in the common ground, in the role play, we had to say what the other person was feeling or what they were trying to express, which would make the other person feel like they were being listened to and understood. So,
and I think just by feeling listened to and understood, it automatically kind of reduces the tension.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It makes a stronger connection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, because it lowers that defensive mechanism we kind of put forth, and when we realize that, you know, we're not being attacked, we don't necessarily go on the defense, and we're much more open to outside perspective. So I agree with that.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things, like, you know, like you just said, like the whole attack. I think possibly you're feeling like when you came to the common ground strategy, you were feeling like, you know, like maybe taking it personally that she wasn't seeing you type of deal, or creating excuses not to see you. And sometimes you can bring that to the table already. So as soon as you start feeling understood, then like Rochelle had said, like, you know, you start to de-escalate.
Yeah, I think it goes back, like Rochelle had said, you know, I think it was Rochelle who had kind of noticed that it was another perspective that maybe that particular intern had not seen, that, oh, they have confidence in me, that's why they don't meet with me on a regular basis, or they feel like that doesn't need to necessarily be a priority because I'm capable, and really kind of immediately just was a breath, in a sense, for lack of a better term, and allowed, in my opinion, that resolution to take place. That, you know, again, Common Ground isn't necessarily designed for that, but because of that perspective that it offered up, it allowed for it.
Right.
I think it was helpful for us watching it too, because sometimes when you're actually in the role play, you're kind of focusing on what you're saying. So the opportunity to be able to watch each other was also beneficial.
Yeah, definitely an added practice. Like, you know, instead of you having your friends or your coworkers, it's kind of your classmates and who are in the same role as you, being able to implement it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Does anybody have anything else to add?
No, I think everyone did a great job with this.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody.
Yes, thank you.